Good morning. How are you all? I think all of you know me here. You all are ex-students. Any B.Ed students? Yes. So we have B.Ed as well as DLED students. I guess all of you all know me. I am Alisha Dakunia. I'm from the DLED department. So I teach psychology of development and psychology of learning for the first years, and for the second years I teach principles of evaluation and school administration and classroom management. So principal is a little busy. She's in the DED hall for a function. But anyways, on behalf of our principal, Sister Delia Antau, I welcome all of y'all, our dearest ex-students, both from the B.Ed as well as DLED section, for today's session, which is based on child development and pedagogy. After my session, teacher Swati is going to take the Konkani session. So as you know, there is paper 1 and paper 2, and this is the first time that the government of Goa has introduced this exam, the teacher eligibility test, the Goa teacher eligibility test. Don't worry, we are all new at this, but we are going to try our level best, and today I am here to share all that I know about this subject. So some of you may not answer paper 2, but that's fine. I want all of you all to attend the entire lecture, the whole session, because it's only a few topics which are added in paper 2, just 3 or 4 topics, otherwise more or less it's the same portion. So I want to ask you, how many of you are clearing GTET this time? I repeat, how many of you are clearing GTET this time? I know that all of you all are appearing, but how many of you are clearing GTET this time? Not many hands are raised. There's only this one girl here who put her hand up in blue. What about the rest of you? Some hands are going up halfway, then they put their hands down. They're so hesitant. Come on, you all are future teachers. You all have to be bold and confident and assertive and outspoken. Come on, tell me, how many of you are going to clear GTET this time? I want all of you all to raise your hands up and say, I will clear GTET this time. Words have power. What you say, you believe in. And what you believe in, you automatically start acting in that direction. Now, as you know, maybe some of you all don't know, this exam has always been there. It is actually called CTET. It's a centralized exam, but this is for the first time that government of Goa is having this exam, and it is called GTET. Okay, but otherwise CTET has always been there. Now I asked you all, how many of you are clearing GTET this time, and I know that most of you all, and we are all new at this, but I want to tell you that some of my ex-students have answered this exam before. Even last year, 2 of my students answered and they cleared. So please don't be with this misconception that this is a very difficult exam and I will just not be able to do it. Maybe it is difficult because the portion, you know, you may find it a little vast, but it is not an impossible thing. People have attempted and cleared this exam in the first go. Okay, so I want you to feel confident and believe in yourself, and you will be able to do it. I also want to ask you at this point of time, do you think it is possible for me to teach you everything that you studied in 2 years in 2 hours today? Is it possible? Is it practical? No, it is not. So today what I'm going to do with you is I am going to clear some concepts. So concept clarification. I will revise the theories with you. Also, I'm sure you have the information bulletin which is issued by the SERT. So there is the syllabus that is there prescribed in that information bulletin. So what I've done at my end is that I have referred to the syllabus, analyzed it, and try to tell in each of the subtopics what exactly or what are the subtopics that you need to cover. Okay. There is no need to write down things as I'm explaining. I will share this PPT with you all, but what I write on the green board here and there, that you may take down. Okay, it was not really possible to include everything onto the PowerPoint, so there will be some things which I will write on the board. You may take those points down. So let's get started. Structure. As you know, there is paper 1, paper 2. So teachers who are answering paper 1, you qualify to teach up till standard 5. So under this we have child development and pedagogy, language 1, language 2, mathematics and EVS. Paper 2 we have child development and pedagogy, language 1, language 2, math and science, or social sciences or social studies. Okay. So let's start. So your first topic is child development. From here you will get 10 questions. Okay. So concept of development and its relationship with learning. So when we talk about development, we always discuss growth and development. Okay. Sometimes people use these words interchangeably, but they are two different things. You know that. So under this you have to know meaning of growth and development, stages of growth and development, then each of those stages. Which are the stages that we have? Yes, we have infancy, then which is 0 to 2 years, or from birth to 2 years. Then we have childhood, we have early childhood, middle childhood, late childhood. Then we have adolescence, which is puberty and late adolescence and adulthood. Okay, the later stages of life are not that important for you, but these stages are more important. Now when we talk about growth, what is growth? Anybody can answer? Would you like to answer what is growth? So growth is something that is in physical standards, height of a person, weight of a person, complexion, all physical aspects. Okay, those are growth. Development is to do with more of the maturity of the person. Okay, so growth is lifelong or development is lifelong? Development, they say, is lifelong. Okay, womb to the tomb, whereas growth will stop after a particular point of time. Okay, so that you need to know. Then at each of those stages of life, especially childhood, you need to know the developmental tasks at each of those stages. Okay, now what are the various areas of development? We have physical and motor development, then we have emotional development, social and cognitive, and language and moral development. Okay, then you need to know the differences between growth and development and maturation. Then when we talk about emotions and emotionality of children, how they pick up emotions, how do emotions serve as a source of knowledge and transfer of information. Then the interaction of maturation and development in the process of learning and for learning, and then role of teachers and educational implications. Please know that you are studying anything and everything, let's say under child development and pedagogy, any theory or whatsoever, you need to know what is the interplay of the teacher and the pupil. Why are you learning this theory? What are the classroom implications of that particular theory? What is the meaning of educational implications or classroom implication? Basically the application of that theory. Okay, how will you use that theory, or how will the knowledge of that theory help you? That is what it is. So physical growth and development describes the physical as well as psychomotor changes in an individual. Mental development includes such abilities such as perceiving, observing, thinking, solving problems, reasoning, sensation, imagination, concentration, etc. Emotional development refers to development and the attainment of emotional maturity, awareness of people's feelings, self-control, and managing negative feelings. Moral development is when children are small, they do not know the concept of right and wrong or good versus bad. This sense develops with time, and this itself refers to moral or character development. Then language, is a communication system that involves using words and systematic rules to organize those words to transmit information from one individual to another. While language is a form of communication, not all communication is language. We know that. Then talking about social development, we know that at birth the child is neither social nor antisocial or unsocial. A young child, however, at times is seen to be antisocial because the children tend to get naughty. But when the child grows up, he develops some social behavior which makes him or her an acceptable social being. Okay, so these are the areas of growth and development. All right. Then we have causes of individual differences. As far as I can remember, this is module 2 in the DLED syllabus. Okay, so we have individual differences, and what are the prime causes of individual differences? Heredity and environment. Please fix your glance onto the screen. Yes, look at that figure there. Yes, so we have individual differences which are inherited or which are genetic. Okay, biological reasons are involved for those differences, whereas we have acquired or environmental, psychological or social reasons via which people will differ. So this concept of nature nurture, right? Okay, so over time scientists have always been debating about the influence, which one is having more influence, is it nature or is it nurture? So under inherited aspects we have physical. So
good morning, students. I'm so happy to see you all here. I know that some of you are from the DLED section and some from the B.Ed, but I'm sure you're happy to meet your companions here. And whatever the reason for you to come together, but whatever it is, it's nice, and I hope you revive some old memories of being here. I'm very grateful to this Alicia for taking this initiative. In fact, she said this week, I said, what to do? I said, I'm so concerned about our ex-students. And I said, this is the first experience for everyone. Everybody is a little kind of apprehensive of what to expect and all that. But since she has already been doing with DLED students, I said, why not do it here? So I'm grateful to her for giving the time. She has not been giving too well, and she was telling me because of this, that, and the other. But I thank her for her generosity, and also Ms. Swati. She will be coming to take up the company part of it. She's expecting, but in spite of that, she said she was willing to come. So I wish you all the very best as you prepare for your exam. We do not know, everybody's in the same boat, so don't worry and just give your best shot. Okay, so all the very best. God bless you all and be assured of our prayers. We always pray not only for our students who are on campus with us, but we also pray for all our ex-students and benefactors. So you have a large share in our prayers every day. Okay, so God bless you all and all the very best for your exam.
Thank you, Sister. Welcome back after the break. So we stopped at learning. Now let's cover some theories of learning. Now to start off, we have conditioning theories, and in conditioning theories we have classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Now I want you to know that most of these theories are to do with stimulus and response. Okay. Now in conditioning theories, it is mostly first the stimulus and then the reaction or response that you get. Okay. And in operant conditioning, it is mostly relation between the two or association. Okay. The core concept is this, or this is the difference. Okay. Now conditioning theory or classical conditioning was given to us by Ivan Pavlov. What is the creature or animal that he used? Dog. Okay. And operant conditioning? Mouse, mice, or pigeons. Okay. So operant conditioning is given to us by P.F. Skinner. So American, Russian. Okay. And what you could do is, of course, learn the theories and the core concepts in those theories. Those terms like generalization, spontaneous recovery, discrimination, then extinction. Okay, all that you can learn. Then what are operands? What is operant conditioning? The stages of learning in operant conditioning. Then we have cognitivism or cognitivistic theories. So the main theorists or the main contributors to cognitivism are Piaget. You already know about him. Then we have information processing theories, which are mostly based on the model of the computer, input-output. And then we have Lev Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory. This is a very important theory. Please pay attention to the book. Okay. Now, Lev Vygotsky, can you guess his nationality? Russian. Okay. So he passed away really young. He died at 38, if I'm not mistaken. And he has done extensive research in educational psychology. But because he passed away early, a lot of his studies have not been interpreted as yet. Okay, but the things that we know are quite significant. Now, there are a couple of things that Vygotsky speaks of. Now, amongst the most important ones are language. Okay, theories are more around language, society, or culture, how they interact. Okay, and speech or private internalized speech. Now, you all know that you constantly think, right? Cognition is an ongoing process. Which language do you think in? You think in your mother tongue. Okay, you may know different languages, but you always think in your mother tongue. So that's like your personal, private speech. So he said that for children to learn or for cognition to take place, it's going to happen around these areas, he said. Okay, so language was important. Then he also said that everything that children are learning is from a cultural or a societal front or aspect. Okay, so and he actually came to this conclusion because of his interaction with his own children. He saw that his children were constantly constructing knowledge or learning from him and people around. You agree with this, right? Children learn from other people. Now, these other people are called knowledgeable other. More knowledgeable other. Okay, so there are these people who already know things around the world from whom other people learn. Now it could be children or other people, adolescents, adults, anybody. Okay. Then Vygotsky also mentioned about zone of proximal development. Okay. Now, what is the zone of proximal development? Zone means a place. Now, over here it means any place or situation where there is possibility of learning to take place. It is zone of proximal development. Okay. And the process via which a more knowledgeable person helps or rather teaches another person who is less knowledgeable. That process is called scaffolding. Okay? I will explain this with an example. Scaffolding means you know what is scaffolding. Otherwise, in life, you know what it is. You have like a staircase that builds, or these are ladder. Yes. So construction like a ladder. On the beach, sometimes you have this lifeguard sitting on top. Then what they do, those are those temporary structures with what they climb on top and they sit on top. That is called scaffolding. Temporary. It's forever on the beach. No, they remove it when their job is over. Okay. So Vygotsky said that any person, child or adult, can learn from any other person, child or adult. Need not necessarily be that a child is always learning from an adult. Even adults can learn from children, he said. That's why he's not using a term like older person. He's saying more knowledgeable person. Someone who has the knowledge. That's it. Okay? And temporarily, when a person needs to know something, temporarily, he will get it via scaffolding. Once he has learned it, then he doesn't need scaffolding. Here, I'll try to explain with an example. Since there are more women here, I will use this example. All of you know how to make chapatis? Yes? You all know how to make round rotis? How many of you all know? Very good. I don't know. Mine are like maps. Which every time it's a different map. Okay? So some of you all know how to make round chapatis, right? Now let's say some people want to learn how to make them. Okay, or I want to learn. And the zone of proximal development or the place, the possibility is the place, kitchen. Possibility may be breakfast time in the morning or evening. If you're making chapatis for dinner, let's say. Okay. More knowledgeable person is a person who already knows how to make round chapati. Let's say mother. Okay. And temporarily, if she's helping you how to make them round and nice and fluffy, then there what is happening? Scaffolding is happening. Let's say it takes 5 days to actually learn, like you practice and you try it and you finally succeed. Then will you need help? Will you need scaffolding? No, it was a temporary procedure of 5 days. Did you understand the theory now? Yes? Okay. Okay, then we have information processing theories. we have different theories, but I can remember, I think you have studied Atkinson and Shiffrin's theory. Yes? Can you remember? Anybody, can you recollect and share with the class? Atkinson's and Shiffrin's stage model also, I think it was called. Remember? What was it? Sensory register, right? No? Rajni? Then from sensory register we have short-term memory. From there we have long-term memory. So information enters via senses. Okay. Then it goes to short-term memory. If it is retained in short-term memory, then it is going to go to the long-term memory. Then there are different types of long-term memories like procedural memory, declarative memory. What? Information stored in long-term memory can be stored for days, months, a lifetime. The duration of short-term memory, long-term memory, fraction of a second, a few minutes maybe or seconds. Okay. Then processes via which information is retained in long-term memory, elaborate rehearsal, maintenance rehearsal. Okay. So I cannot go in details of each of these because we don't have that much time, but please find out for yourself. Then constructivism, based on the idea that humans or pupils, children, students can actively construct knowledge. Okay, like there is prior knowledge and constantly you are picking up from around you and you are constructing knowledge. Then main theorists are Dewey, Piaget, Vygotsky. New name over there is Bruner, Jerome Bruner. Okay. To do the theory in detail, but I will quickly clear or tell you the central idea of this theory. So basically, he spoke about 3 stages. Okay. He said stage 1 is enactive learning, or learning at the early stage is enactive. Enact, act, role play. You see children speak of or act like the characters they see on television and all. You see, like sometimes they dance like that Chota Bheem and Batman, Spider. They think that they are that, or they try to act like that. Okay, so enactive learning means acting out learning or touching, feeling learning. So you want to teach children something about leaves, let's say. Leaves, different types of leaves. So if you want them to learn best at this time, at this stage, you may have to bring the different leaves and show them. Like tamarind leaf, okay, or a mango leaf, a coconut leaf. There are different leaves, right? Different sizes, magnitudes. So that is enactive learning. Then we said after enactive learning, we have something called as iconic stage or iconic learning. Icon means what? Image or picture. So he said after children progress from this stage, they go to iconic learning, where they can learn from just pictures. You need not necessarily actually show them the object. Even if you show them a picture, it will be enough. Like in school, let's say, a history teacher is teaching about the Taj Mahal. Okay, so she actually takes them to Agra and brings them back. What does she do? She shows a picture or maybe like a small miniature model of the Taj Mahal. Or the textbook will have a picture, right? Then we have symbolic learning. The next stage is symbolic, where children can learn or they can just understand even with language. You say the word and they already have a mental representation. It's there. So, and that is because by this time children have already developed or they have the capacity for abstract thinking. That's the reason why you don't really have to show a picture. You don't really have to show the object. You say the thing and it's understood. So higher classes, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 standard. That's the time where that lecture pattern comes, right? So, in colleges, then it is mostly called lectures. While the older people, they can just understand complex, very complicated things by verbal speech. Verbal speech is going on. Have you understood the stages now? Okay. I think I already explained this. John Dewey, I told you, father of progressive education. I told you, hands-on learning by doing, all those things. He focused on the creative mind of the child. Then I've already explained to you about Piaget as well. Brunner, Vygotsky. Okay. Okay, now let's come to motivation. What are the two basic types of motivation? Yes, good. Intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. So, what are the different types of drives or motives? Hunger, thirst, and sex drive. Okay, basic. Then we also have other needs or motives like that of temperature regulation or safety needs. Okay. But basic drives and all you learn, then you please learn Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That triangle or that pyramid. So, those starting with primary needs going up to self-actualization that you learn. Okay. Then you also learn about motivation in learning, what motivates, what demotivates learners. Then strategies for enhancing motivation in students. Then attention. In attention you can learn meaning, nature, types, voluntary attention, involuntary attention, selective attention, divided attention, span of attention, concentration. Then memory, you learn concept, types, then causes of forgetting, theories of forgetting, then memory techniques, if you can remember, algorithms, mnemonics, heuristics, method of Loki. You remember those methods, okay? Then we have emotion, concept, emotional quotient, functions or uses of emotions, basic and universal emotions. This is more general topics, that's why I'm not going much in detail. But theories, this is usually important, maybe some know, some don't know. Now the first two theories which you can see, that's James Lange and Cannon-Bard, are more popularized, or they are the ones that people even in 11th, 12th psychology learn about these theories. The other two are not learned much, okay? That is the Schacher-Singer two-factor theory and Lazarus's cognitive mediational model of theory. They are not learned that much. Now, I've come up with this way of teaching all four theories together. Because if I take each one of them, it's going to waste more time. All these four theories are discussing stimulus, reaction, and experience of emotion. Okay? So let's learn them by comparing them with each other. Alright? Now, what I have done is I have taken a person or a human example, and that human's interaction with the fear-provoking creature, that is a snake. Okay? So, snake and person. Okay, now let's say how each of those theories explain this relation of stimulus and response. Now, according to James Land's theory, when a person sees a snake, he will get physical reaction. That is, he will sweat, his heart may start thumping, pounding, physical experience is happening, and then he will experience fear. This is what is said by James and Land. Okay, so you experience stimulus, you get physical experience, and then you experience the emotion. What is the emotion? Fear. Okay. Then Kenneth and Bard disagreed with that. They said, you will see the snake, and there may not be time for one thing to be followed by the other. He said both the things will happen together. So you will sweat and your heart will race, and at the same time you will experience the emotion, and that is of fear. This is what is said by Cannon and Bard. Okay, I don't know which theory you agree more with, but this is how it is. Then Stature and Singer said that you will experience or you will see the stimulus, you will experience physical symptoms, you will acknowledge or you will get that mental message that, oh, I am scared, and then you will experience the emotion. So basically, they tried to push the brain a little bit over. See, all this while it was more of experiencing it, where at the what level? You have brain and mind now, interaction between them. More at the mind level, but here they slightly push. Cognitive means thinking means brain. So they slightly push the brain in between. Okay. So once again, he said you see the snake, you get physical experience, cognitively you will acknowledge it, and then you will experience fear. Okay. And lastly, Lazarus's cognitive mediational model says that you will see the snake or you will have that arousal. You will appraise it. Appraisal means what? The word is also used in the corporate world. No? Appraisal means an office term. Weighing outcomes, pros and cons. How scared am I? More scared, less scared? Am I scared? Am I not scared? So all this internalized dialogue will happen in that quick span of time. And then they are saying you will have the physical symptoms. Do you understand the four theories? Yes? Okay. Then we have transfer of learning. Important concept for teachers. Transfer of learning, what I am teaching you. So we have positive transfer, negative transfer, and zero transfer. Okay. So we have methods, or rather these are reasons why transfer takes place. Okay. So if something is, let's say, is contrasting in configuration, or if something is similar, identical items, or if something is set and subset. So like this, there are various conditions via which or because of which transfer of learning takes place. Then under the subtopic of information processing and thinking, we have critical thinking. Critic, you know the meaning of the word critic? You know, critiquing and criticizing. Two different words. Okay, sometimes people interchangeably use it, but it's not that. Critique, like how you have book critic, movie critic. What do they do? After watching the movie, reading the book, what do they do? They write about it in the terms of the, come on. You've never read like a movie critic or review in a newspaper or something like that. What do? They talk about the pros and cons. They say this is good or this could have been better. Some person has acted well, not at all, that we discuss. No, that it is critiquing. So critical thinking means a type of thinking in which a person can fragment or make parts of that information and think. Okay, more like analytical thinking, analyzing. Okay, And barriers to critical thinking, kind of the same things that we have as barriers to problem solving as well. You know, these things like mental set, functional fixedness, those things, okay, barriers. Then problem solving, another key thinking process is problem solving. So problem awareness is the first step of problem solving. You should know that you have a problem in order for you to want to solve the problem and then to be able to solve the problem. Okay. Then strategies of how to solve problems and factors that affect problem solving. Then divergent thinking is the opposite of convergent thinking. So divergent means coming out with many outcomes or possibilities. That is divergent thinking. So refers to a way of solving problems wherein a variety of possible solutions or plausible answers can be inferred to. Then creativity and innovation. What is the difference in creativity and innovation? Creativity means thinking in novel terms or ideas, newness. Innovation is putting that thought in action is innovation. Okay? Basic difference. So you learn the characteristics of these, then creativity in children, what makes children creative. Then creativity and intelligence, the difference between the two. If I ask you, are all intelligent people creative? Yes or no? Loudly. Are all creative people intelligent? Yes or no? Some are saying okay. All intelligent people need not necessarily be creative, but all creative people are intelligent. Okay? So let's say some person that you know is doing some handicrafts, bamboo work and all. It's creativity. That's creative work. So can you say that he doesn't have intelligence? No. Okay. A creative person is also an intelligent person. Okay. But need not be vice versa. Then we have curriculum, pedagogy and evaluation. I don't teach this paper, as you know, but I have thought about the portion that you need to cover in curriculum pedagogy. Evaluation is something that I teach, but not curriculum development. So under this, you will have to know the concept and principles of curriculum development. I've already mentioned them there on the slide. So once you get the PowerPoint, you can further, research and understand those. And we have the different types of curriculum transactions or processes. So we have designs which are subject-centered, learner-centered, problem-centered, and we also have teacher-centered. Okay, but that has now lost popularity. So these are like more accepted because they serve children better. Okay. Okay. Then we have factors that affect curriculum transaction, and what are the steps that you need to focus on when designing a curriculum? These are the ones. Okay. And then we come to the concept of evaluation. Now, what is educational evaluation or the need for evaluation? Everybody or most people dislike exams, right? But if you do not have exams, or if there is no method of checking if learning has taken place or not, or if there is no method of, scrutinizing the work that is done by teachers, you will never know if learning objectives have been met. You write, your general learning objectives, specific learning objectives. Schools have aims and objectives, right? So if you don't have evaluation, then you don't know if any of those objectives have been met. Now, main concepts in evaluation are measurement, assessment, and evaluation. Okay, people will use them interchangeably here and there, synonymously also. But the key differences are these. Measurement means just giving a score. Okay? Let's say you give a dictation test in the class, or you give some test in the class out of 10. You get different scores of your students. Somebody is getting 2 on 10, somebody is getting 5 on 10, somebody is getting 8 on 10. You gave a test, you corrected the papers, you gave a score. What is this? Measurement. Okay? Then after you get your scores, I said 2 on 10, 5 on 10, 8 on 10. What is the meaning of 2 on 10? What will you say about a person who gets 2 on 10? Is very good? Yes? 2 on 10 means needs a lot of improvement, right? Not fared really well on the test. So what are you doing? You're trying to make meaning out of that score that you got. That is assessment. Okay? 8 on 10 means done quite well. 5 on 10 means satisfactory performance, average performance, half score. Okay? So that is assessment. Then what happens is after you measured and assessed the scores, now you try to make comprehensive sense out of all those things. So you decide, does this person need more help? Does the student need remediation? Does he need an extra class? What do we do? Do we teach that person differently? So what are you trying to do? Trying to come to more solutions or conclusions, inferences. So making more sense out of that basic score that you got, the raw score. So what are you doing? You are evaluating, okay, the performance, evaluating the performance of the child, and you're also trying to see which of the learning objectives have been met. That is evaluation. Okay, so you need to know more in detail what is measurement, what is assessment, what is evaluation. So concept you try to know. Then objectives as to why we have educational evaluation. Okay, mostly the aspects will be around this. When you see there in the bracket, objectives, content, learning activities, and evaluation. These 4 things, you know, can be pictorially or diagrammatically presented like this. Okay, so you can place those 4 things there. See the arrows. They're all towards each other. Means they are all going towards one common goal, and that is learning. Okay, you can place anything anywhere. You can put content here, you can put learning here, you can put procedure here, you can put evaluation here, anything. But it's always in kind of the same direction towards each other. One thing is always leading to the other. Okay? Then, purpose of educational evaluation. What is the purpose of educational evaluation? Uses of educational evaluation. Okay, to understand the child's level of understanding. Like a broader purpose, but uses of educational evaluation. Know the strengths or weaknesses of it again. Give me in terms of exams. Uses of exams, shall I say. Not say evaluation, exams. Why all think that everything is complicated? Simple. How will you promote the child in the next class if you don't have exams? How will you know? Pass, fail, you should know, no? So diagnosis, prognosis, promotion, certification, grading, placement, ranking, all these are uses of educational evaluation. Okay? Go through your notes. These things are there in your notes. Then we have forms or types of evaluation. We have a formal, informal evaluation, serif and peer evaluation, internal, external evaluation, and formative and summative evaluation. Formal, informal means Formal exams, proper board exams and all. This is formal evaluation. Informal means having a test in the class. Informal evaluation. Self and peer. Self means I correct my own answer sheet. Peer means students correct of each other. Then internal, external. Internal evaluation means evaluation conducted by your teachers is internal evaluation. Then someone comes from the department and takes your practical exam, some science exam, Viva. That is external evaluation. Okay. Then we have formative and summative evaluation. Let's see that a little in detail. Because why? Because of our friend CC. Okay. So CC is all about formative and summative evaluation. So formative means it is ongoing and summative means term end exam is summative evaluation. Now CC, why we have CC, purpose of CC, advantages of CC, disadvantages of CC, steps follow. Collecting information. Who is collecting information on or about whom? Who is collecting information? Teacher of student. Good. Then recording the information. How is the teacher recording the information of the student? Yes? Sorry? Maintaining the profiles. How is that done? With the help of anecdotal records, portfolios, right? Rating scales, checklists, naturalistic observation, systematic observation, different methods. Then making sense of the information collected. Okay. So gauging or inferring after you have collected information, and then reporting and communicating feedback to either the other teachers or to parent or to stakeholders like headmaster, PTA, counselor, etc. Okay, then CC can be represented as this diagram here. So we have two components of CC. One is the continuous component and one is the comprehensive component. Okay, so continuous means learning is happening continuously and you are periodically giving those small tests. Formatives they are called now, formative tests. Then comprehensive because it is a comprehensive capsule of scholastic and post-scholastic areas of the child. Okay. Then scholastic under scholastic or scholastic area is assessed with the help of formative tests and summative exams. Okay. Now in scholastic, what do we have? In scholastic, what do we have? What comprises of scholastic aspect of CC? Yes. Academic subjects, right? Which are they? Languages, science, mathematics, and social science. Good. And post-scholastic area, what does that have? What does post-scholastic area have? Yes? It has life skills, work education, visual and performing arts, attitudes and values and other co-curricular activities. This is your post-scholastic area. So all your physical education, work education, value education, yoga, whatever, dramatics, theatrics, all that will be here. Okay? Even scouting, guiding. Then your formative assessment or those class tests will be mostly MCQ based. Okay? Or other methods or techniques will be used like interview, quiz, debate, discussion, brainstorming, these sessions. Okay, all will be formative assessment. Summative, we will have proper exams, and your question paper is what is used as a tool in the exam. The question paper will have very short answer type, long answer type, or very long answer type questions. Okay. Then principles or steps of designing a classroom-based test or a question paper. So you design weightages to the content. Content means portion, syllabus. Okay. Then objectives, your general and specific objectives, and forms of questions. Means what question will have how many marks, what type of question will have how many marks, half mark, 1 mark, 2 marks. So that you will decide. Then you will prepare a blueprint. What is a blueprint? Has it been like 10 years that you did your B.Ed. A blueprint is a three-dimensional design of your question paper. Okay. Then designing the items, then editing or reviewing the items and checking them again, arranging them in the order, and providing directions on how to answer that question. Okay, whether to answer in a word, answer in a sentence, how many words that. Then preparing a scoring key or marking scheme. Then administering the test and evaluating the test. Then characteristics of a good test. We have reliability, validity, objectivity, and practicality. You know the meaning of these words? Or you want me to tell you? Yes or no? Yes? Now, see, when you design a test, and when that test measures what it is designed to measure, it is called a valid test. Means, I designed a test to know the skill of subtraction in the child. I designed a test to know the vocabulary of the child. I designed a test to know if the child is able to construct a particular geometrical shape. This is my purpose. Okay. And from that test, I come to know if the child is being able to do all of those things. Then the test is a valid test. Now, let's say I give the test today to the child. I get results. I give the test in 1 month to the child. I get results. In 6 months, I get results. I give the test to children who are of that same age or same class, same standard. I get results. Then it is called a reliable test. Why? Because it is consistent in its results. So when a test measures what it is designed to measure, it is a valid test. When a test measures what it is designed to measure consistently over a period of time, it is a reliable test. Okay? Then a test is objective when it is clear. It is not ambiguous. It is not subjective. There is no scope of bias. Then it is an objective test. A test is practicable or usable when it does not have other type of problems or hindrances in its administration. Like, let's say, cost-wise. It is a cost-effective test. A costly test will be practical? No. When it is easy to administer, easily available, then what will happen? It is a usable, more usable or more practical test. Okay. Then we have concept of inclusive education and understanding children with special needs. Inclusion means segregation, separating. No, inclusion means accepting, bringing together. Okay. Now we have normal children and we have special children. Now the term that they are using is differently abled children. Okay, it is more widely used than special children. Fine. So special children could be anybody. It could be borderline children also can be special, and gifted children also can be special. So in the case of gifted or prodigy children, a method of exclusive pattern will be adopted. But finally it is inclusion. Okay. Then we have children with physical handicap, like let's say somebody is on a wheelchair, or while walking the child is walking differently, some deformity or something. And then we have children with learning disabilities. Okay, there are different types of learning disabilities. You know that, right? Dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia, aphasia, many are there. So just go through that also. Now, when we talk about inclusion, have you any time experienced inclusive classroom? Do you know how it functions? No? So basically, now let's say I'm the teacher, this is my class, okay? And this is like an inclusive classroom. And maybe I have 3 children who are differently able. Let's say 1, 2, 3, these 3 are differently able, okay? So what will happen is for some classes during the day, they will not be with us, but they will be in a resource room. So in the resource room, there will be a resource person that comes and teaches them separately. The same things that they have to learn here, they are taught separately, and some other life skills are given. And for the rest of the time, they are with us in the common classroom. So this way, they know how to behave with normal children, and normal children know how to behave with them and how to accept them. Clear? Okay? So this is how inclusion happens. Now, these are things that I can't really explain, but you have to know these. These are more like what the government has done for, accepting children. Then Right to Education Act, how the NCF, looks at children and teachers. One word you need to know, that is facilitator, very commonly found in the NCF. So teachers are now known to be facilitators, okay, in the process of education. So what the Goa government has done. Then Right to Education Act, which says that every person has an equal opportunity to education up till what level? Up till 14 years, no, elementary. So right to education, it's everybody, it involves them also, includes them also. Okay, then national education policy, you are aware of. The first one, 68 and 86, then 2016, they kind of started revising it, and now the new one may be implemented now in this next academic year or so. Okay. Then some key concepts of inclusive education, quickly I'll tell you. You heard this thing called differentiated instruction or differentiated teaching and individualized instruction. Just write down there. Differentiated teaching, individualized instruction. So sometimes people get confused. Don't be confused. Individualized instruction means giving attention to each child. Okay, which is sometimes not possible in a classroom. Why? Because we have so many, 50, 60 students are there sometimes. So individualized instruction means giving attention to each child. Differentiated instruction means designing curriculum catering to the needs of each child. So let's say one person is very good in English, but very weak in math. So teaching that person in that way or focusing more on the weaknesses of the child. So each child will have like a customized syllabus, you can say. Okay. Okay. So then with individualized instruction, differentiated teaching, other things like team teaching, cooperative learning, multi-sensory approach. Okay, then changing the environment, means making the campus friendly environment for children. Like you have those what are they called? Wheelchair aisles, So there are stairs also, and there are those wheelchair friendly stairs or those aisles, so that they can move around without other people's assistance or help. Okay, that's how you change the environment. So I tried to make this table so that at one glance you get information on inclusive education. So once you get the PPT, you can just go through this. So I put what is inclusive education: principles, goals, target groups, and benefits. Okay. Now these are the additional topics that are there. Okay. We finished with paper 1. These are the additional topics. One additional topic is educational psychology. So otherwise, psychology is the study of human mind and behavior, or study of mind and behavior of humans and animals. So educational psychology is understanding humans in a educational setting. Okay. Rather, what happens with children in the classroom. That's educational psychology. As simple as that to understand. But then also I have mentioned definitions and other features of educational psychology or principles of educational psychology. Then when we talk about scope of educational psychology, the 3 core areas are learner, the learning process, and the learning experience. Okay, these are the main 3 core areas. Please know these in detail. Okay. Then we have other things also like the learning situation or the environment and the teacher. Okay. Then we have self-concept, attitudes, interest, and values. Now, you should actually be asking the question, why are we studying this? Okay. The reason why we are studying or touching upon self-concept, attitudes, interests, values is because this is what makes up the personality of a person. That's why. What is personality? Rather stable, consistent traits of a person is personality. So these are actually contributors of personality. Okay. So self-concept is your perception of yourself. Self-esteem is the value or worth you give yourself. Self-efficacy is your understanding of your efficiency, work efficiency of yourself. That is self-efficacy. Okay. So don't get confused. Then attitude is a person's predisposition towards anything. Don't confuse the meaning. Usually we use the word attitude for arrogance. She has too much attitude. Means what? The person is proud. Okay. Pride factor. But here attitude means your perception and how you behave with things around. That attitude. Then interest is when you are interested in something, you will learn better. Children usually, when they have interest, then they will have sustained concentration, and because of sustained concentration, they will pay attention. That is how learning happens. Okay. And lastly, we have values. So we have personal values, national values, universal values, different types of values. How values make up the belief system of a person, that you can learn. Then another additional topic here in learning is factors related to learning. So I have clubbed them in 3 categories. That is teacher related factors, learner related factors, and content related factors. Okay. Have you noticed that I am saying content and not content? Content is what? Syllabus. When we talk about syllabus, we use the pronunciation of content. But if I say, what are the contents of this box? Means what is in that? Then it is content. Okay. Okay. We have the learning process related factors also. So I have put those down. Okay. And this is another additional topic in curriculum. That is the models of curriculum. I don't know if you recognize. Kaba's model and Tyler model are the more famous models of curriculum. Okay, and then we have other ones also. Goodlands is there, Hankins is there. Then we have non-technical models and we have technical models. So scientific, non-scientific. So we have Open Classroom, Fantini and Rogers. And these are technical or scientific methods. Okay. Now, quickly in 10 minutes, let's do, before ma'am takes over the opening session, let's quickly do some class work. Okay. Now, I want you to raise your hands when you agree with each of these topics or each of the alternatives. Okay. So the first one is the primary task of a teacher is which one? A, B, C, D. How many say A? How many say A? Quick. How many say A? Raise your hand. B, C, D. Okay, B is the correct answer. Okay. Then, what is a reading disability? Which one of these? Sure. That is the okay. Yes, dyslexia is the correct answer. Then, what is the other one? What is agoraphobia? I don't know. Graphia, graphic. Something to do with writing. So it is the inability to be able to write. Something is wrong with previous information. Tension is the problem. In other words, you know, aphasia, you know. No? So if there is some brain damage or some injury or something like that, so there are some particular tasks that the person cannot do. Okay? And the other one is what? Aphasia. What is that? It's a language disorder. Okay? Then we have third one. Read this. As per NCR 2005, the general aspect, which is a physical inconvenience to children, is this came in Andhra Pradesh PET exam, May 2018. Which one? How many say A? How many say B? C? D? Okay, the correct answer is C. Okay. Then, assessment is what? They are asking. What is assessment? How many say A, B, C, D? Good. D is the correct answer. Okay, next one. Good, now you are clear in detail. How can a teacher encourage her students to be intrinsically motivated towards learning for the sake of learning? What is the answer? A, C. Yes, C is the correct answer. Good. Then CCE is essential for A, B is the correct answer. Good. Then this one. Students in class are asked to assemble various artifacts. What kind of activity is this? Everybody agrees? Portfolio? Yes, correct. Next. The laws of learning are given by no? Contact. Good. I didn't mention it earlier. Then, which of the following statements is true about learning? How many say A? B? Yes, B is the correct answer. Then, developing new rules and principles on the basis of given facts and information at every level is called A, B, C, B. Okay. Now, because some have given the correct answer and some have not given the correct answer, at this point I'll tell you a method. Okay. Now see, I'm getting this conflict between B and D alternative, by the way. So I'll tell you what is elimination method. Okay. Now let us say there are four options that are given. Each of those options has a 25% possibility of being the correct answer, right? So it's like if you have four options and 25%, elimination method means get rid of the options that are not at all or can just not be the correct answers. Get rid of them. So if you have four options, let's get rid of A and C because nobody here agreed with A and C. Now what is happening is we are left with B and D. So now from 25% our possibility has increased to 50%. So one can be the correct answer. One is the correct answer. So see, developing new rules and principles given on the basis of given facts and information in memory level is called batch. So you are developing something on the basis of something. And what are you doing? This and this thing has a connection. Which word means connection there? Association. So, association. Now, the method of elimination will work if you have not complete knowledge to come to the correct answer, but you have somewhat knowledge of coming to the correct answer. Then the method of elimination is going to work for you. Okay? So maybe you see two plausible answers and two irrelevant answers, then you narrow down your possibilities. Okay? That is how it works. Okay, next one, 11th one. Which of the following teaching aids help the pupils to study, analyze and compare data? Sorry, that's data. Graphs, good. Then the phrase equal educational opportunities in India means what? Means what? A, how many say A? B, C, B. How am I not saying anything? You are not BJP, not Congress, not AAP, not RG, nothing. Tribunal Congress also is coming now. Come already. Come on, A. Who is saying A? B, C, D. Okay, A is the correct answer. So the first one, the only one actually. Okay, to choose A. Then 13. The students of class 5 make too much of noise in math class. What do you think is the reason? Children are naughty, no? That's why they make noise. Which of these options? The children dislike the subject, children dislike all subjects. Sometimes. Okay, the correct answer is A. The teacher is not very versed in teaching methodology. Then, this one. Lev Vygotsky, as a teacher who believes in social theory of Vygotsky, which method would you prefer? A, B, C or D? Come on, how many say A, B, C, D? Okay, A is the correct answer. Collaborative project. Then Vygotsky, according to him, the primary cause of cognitive development is what? B is the correct answer, not D. Equilibration is Piaget, not here. Okay, next. According to Piaget, schema building occurs as a result of modifying new information to fit old schemas. So this process happens with what? Assimilation and adaptation, accommodation and adaptation, equilibration and modification, assimilation and accommodation. Which one? Okay, just a minute. Who here doesn't know the answer at all? You don't have a hunch towards any option. Raise your hand. I need you to teach another method of coming to a correct answer. Who here doesn't know only? I just don't know. Anybody here? Everybody has some option in mind. Okay, now let's say you don't know at all. I mean, this is like Greek to you, let's say. It can happen that you go for the exam, GTET, and you just don't know. You blank out, you don't know. What will you do? Leave it blank? No. So you do this. Okay? Heard the word probability? Okay. Probability means what? Chances. It's like a gamble, take the chance. So it's like this. Let's say there are 5 questions. God forbid that doesn't happen. But let's say there are 5 questions you don't know anything about. You just blank. You don't know what to do. You can't leave them blank. You have to come to an answer. What you do, you know, first of all, from today, start praying. And on that day, you close your eyes, bring the image of God in front of your closed eyes. You think of the God that you pray, and let God convey to you an alphabet. Okay, that's why I said from today, start praying. On that day, God may be busy. That's all. Let him be accustomed to, used to you from today, asking him a correct answer. So that day, you don't know only, no. So rather than leaving it blank, you think of an alphabet. So let's say you close your eyes and you think God, and God tells you it's B. So let it be B. So for all those 5 questions, you put that B over there. Okay? This is probability. Because out of those 5, then what people do, you know, 10, 20, 30, 40, or what I feel is the correct answer. Your feelings can definitely be wrong because you've probably not studied that topic. But if you put the same alphabet for those 3 or 4 questions that you just don't know anything about, for sure out of those 5, at least one will be a B. Probability. Yeah? Okay. So the answer here is assimilation and accommodation. Okay. Last 3 quickly before ma'am comes and takes a company class. The term that does not coincide with the style of learning is rote learning. Rote learning is not actually any style. Okay. Next one. Successful inclusion requires the following except which one does not go with inclusion? Good, segregation. Then, repeatedly asking children to engage in learning activities either to avoid punishment or to gain reward. What will happen if you do that? Constantly telling children, pay attention, or I'll punish you. What will happen then? 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 is the correct answer. They will start losing interest and curiosity. Okay? And last one. A primary school teacher can encourage children to become effective problem solvers by 1, 3. All agree? 3. 3 is the correct answer. Okay, any questions? Would anybody like to give feedback? Yeah. Sorry? I'll share everything. Okay, please do us a favor, do yourselves a favor. Any 2 of you all come together or one of you come forward and make a WhatsApp group and call that group GTEC Nirmala. Okay? You all can after class just make one invite link to join the group. Everybody join that group and I will share stuff over there, some PDF, whatever reference book, blah, blah. Okay? Also, let's say you want more detailed explanation of certain topics. I recently started making some simple videos on YouTube. So you can just revise maybe, or if you're driving and all, you can play those rather than wasting your time. It can, when you hear, you learn faster, right? When you watch and the audio visuals have more impact on us. So you can also maybe, I'll share those links with you. You can use that. Whatever resources that I have, I will share with you. Okay? But make that WhatsApp group, add me, add each other, and then we will get going from there. Okay? Thank you, class. Anything else you want to say? Any feedback? Okay, let's welcome teacher Swati. If she is there, yeah, she will take the company session now. Okay. Thank you, class.